Well, you're being found.
You said I wanted to be found.
Me. So long ago, I kept trying to decide what I was gonna do next, and then just changing my mind. If you're here, thank you. Welcome. Because if you're here if you're watching it. But thank you for being here. Because I know there's very few of you right now. And hopefully that will grow and that will change and this channel will grow. And if you don't know what to expect, because I haven't really done an intro video, just because I've had this channel actually since 2012, but was never really consistent because I wasn't sure what kind of content I wanted to post. And I finally made up my mind, and now I want to be consistent, because where I'm most consistent is TikTok. That's where I've seen the most response. I'm growing more over there, but I really want it to be YouTube. So I'm trying to just focus here on YouTube. And so I finally decided what the content will be, how it will be done. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, because it's June, it's time for the mid-year reset. I've been working on my mid-year reset, working on my plans, my goals, my systems, and I am ready for the next half of this year. I'm ready to kind of hit the ground running. I've got a lot of things I want to get done, and I'm ready for a lot of positive change, big positive change. But anyway, I wanted to talk about like the best books I've read in 2025 so far. Now, these are just 5 with an honorable mention. I've read some pretty amazing books so far this year, but I'm only going to talk about 5 right now because it's like, I don't want to overwhelm you. I think I've got some great ones. And some you will have heard of, obviously, if you watch, bookish content. But some of them maybe you haven't heard people talk about very much. Either way, here we go. So these are random. They're in no particular order, just picking them up and going. But this one happens to be my most recent read, and that is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I just finished this book about like the day before yesterday, or maybe yesterday morning, I think it was. I was going to read this at the beginning of the year, and I was watching another booktuber, I had never watched her content before, but trying to like just support, see what what she had to say. And she was talking about another subject matter and then just randomly ruined one of the major plot points in here. And I was so angry because it was the next book on my TBR. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, spoilers? Did you even think that maybe someone hasn't read it? So anyway, I digress. This is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. If you don't know what this is about, I think there's a show on Apple TV. I thought it said that on here, but I feel like I've heard people mention that this is a show on Apple TV. However, this book is about Jason Dessen, who is a science professor at a small college in Chicago. He has a good life. He's married to the love of his life. He has a teenage son, and he's enjoying his life. There's always things that can improve, but he's enjoying his life. When one day he is taken from that life, forcibly placed in another alternative version of his life, and no one believes him that he doesn't belong there. It's like, what do I do? I don't belong here. How do I get back to my family, my home, my life? And that is the crux of the story. And I tried not to say too much because I feel like sometimes the synopsis and other people's descriptions just gives away way too much. I feel like, just give people enough and let them go into it and read it. If that description doesn't capture you, I'm not really sure what would. And that's not a unique concept. We've read other books like that, seen movies with that premise. But the way that Blake Crouch unfolds this story, Jason's life, you really do care about his life. And not only that, you begin to ask yourself a lot of questions. Because at the beginning of the story, I was interested, but I wasn't fully invested. But I will say, as you were nearing the halfway mark, things begin to really get real and it becomes gripping. And I mean, Blake Crouch like kind of hit in a nice, like in a soft way, or in a subtle way, in my opinion, a subtle way. Blake Crouch kind of hit on the big questions we have of life and the afterlife and our existence, the purpose of our lives. He kind of hits on those subjects in here and makes you kind of ponder these things, like, what is my purpose? What is my life? What if I had made different choices? What if I had gone a different route? Would I prefer an alternative version of my existence? And so you go on that ride with Jason as he's trying to figure out if he can get back home, if he can get back to his life. And it is a wild, trippy, mind-bending ride. I'm not kidding you. By the nearing the end, you're like, what? Because even towards the end, I had like this much left, and he threw a left. He like threw a wrench in there and was like, hey, you thought it was almost over? No, wait, but we've got this problem. And I'm like, wait, what? He did this really, really well. And it made me wonder, like, what would I do? How far would I go to try and get back to my life? Would I persevere if I've got this much working against me? Would I persevere? Would I keep going? Or would I just kind of step back and be like, it's done? I had a good run. That's it. I don't know. This one really made me ask some questions, but I enjoyed it. I will read more things by him. I'm very excited. I've heard the Wayward Pines trilogy is really good, or at least the first book is really good. So I can't wait to check out more of his work, because I do want to read. I think he has a book called Upgrade. I want to check that out. This is my honorable mention. Some people do this at the beginning or last. I'm just going to do it now. My honorable mention, I feel like I made this an honorable mention because this series is so popular that it almost feels wrong to even mention it, because it's like everywhere. You can't go anywhere without hearing about it. But I love it, so I'm going to talk about it for a brief minute. And that is Onyx Storm. This is the third book in the Empyrean Cycle series by Rebecca Yarros. If you've read Fourth Wing, or at least heard of Fourth Wing, you will know this is the third book in that series. And I absolutely loved it. I have no qualms with the series. I know there are people that hate on it, and I think mostly just because it's popular. I didn't want to read this series when I first started it. I did what I typically do if I'm not sure about a book. I will buy it and put the receipt right in like chapter 3 or something. And if the book doesn't hook me by then, it's going back to the store. So I did that, started the first chapter of Fourth Wing, and I knew I was going to like it. So I flew through it. Did Iron Flame, I read a little bit slower, but I still loved it just as much. I just read it a little bit slower because I knew this one wasn't coming out yet at the time that I was reading that. However, this is the third installment. I won't go into the synopsis of this, but I just will say I loved it just as equally as the other two. And I feel like the characters in the series, it's growing in depth. And I'm perfectly fine with that. I love the way it's going. So sign me up for the next one. I'm ready. I started in December with my book club, Liddy with Smitty. I'm part of the book club. That's not my book club. I started this in December, and it kind of spilled over into January, so that's why I'm counting it. But this is The Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. This story, this is a fantasy, obviously, but it's done in such a light-hearted way. But the heavier topics that come up, the personal questions that he's making his characters like self-evaluate, or just the goal, it's approached in such a fun way that this was just a good time. So in this story, if you don't know anything about this, this is a band of mercenaries who they were the biggest in the world in their heyday, but they've gone their separate ways and 20 years have passed. When the leader of the band has a personal dilemma and he's like, we gotta get the band back together. I need my boys. We gotta go and take care of this. And the way Nicholas Eames writes about these characters, they're a band of mercenaries. They're fighters, but he writes about them as if they're a rock and roll band of old, like Rolling Stones. And it's just so funny. And even though you had this heavy quest with insurmountable obstacles, it was a good time. It was just like, I had a great time with this, and I would recommend this to most people. I've talked about this series before, but I'm just going to mention it again. I started The Boys of Tommen. Well, yeah. I started The Boys of Tommen series this year. That's The Boys of Tommen by Chloe Walsh. And if you don't know anything about that series, I will just give you a loose synopsis of it. A group of Irish teens in like the early 2000s, individual traumas and how it's affecting the collective group. And so the first two books are Binding 13 and Keeping 13. This is book 3 and 4. This is Saving 6 and Redeeming 6. This is about the brother of the main female character in Binding 13 and Keeping 13. These two are my favorite, but I love those like 5-star to the first two books. But if I could give these 6 stars, I would. I just love this particular character, and what he went through was just so like, oh my God, the way I cried reading these two books. Like, this series just did something. I don't even know how, but check your trigger warnings. Do not go into this series if you can't handle like all the heavy things. Because you're good. Like, she pulls no punches. Like, she's swinging. Chloe is coming for your mama. Like, she is not playing games here. She's hitting all the heavy topics in this series because they've all gone through trauma. She just released the latest book. I think it's called Releasing 10. However, it's about a character that's in the whole series that I just don't like. Never did. And I really don't want to read about her. So I'm trying to work up to that, because I mean, she's all of them have gone through trauma, but I guess she seems to feel as if her trauma gives her a blanket excuse to be a butthole to everybody else, and I'm just not vibing with her. I don't want to care about her, and I know Chloe, the way she's gonna write it, she's gonna make you care. So we'll see. I'm gonna read it. I just have to work myself up to it because I really don't want to. This is another one I recently read, The Ember Blade by Chris Wooding. This is the first book in the Darkwater Legacy trilogy. And the blurb on the front, who says this? Ed McDonald? I don't know who he is. But the blurb on the front calls this Lord of the Rings for the modern age, the modern generation. And I will say that is true. I do. Like most high fantasy, it gives nods to Lord of the Rings that are recognizable. But it's done in a good way. And the story is still its own. So in this story, you have Aaron, who is a young noble. His people are second class in a land that was taken over by an opposing race. And so his people are, treated as second class citizens. However, he is a young noble when his father is accused of treason and executed. And Aaron and his best friend are thrown in jail for life. There's a man that they encounter who has been given the task to assist Aaron, but he hates him, like absolutely hates him, and won't give him a reason why. And so you have this epic quest they have to go on. You have insurmountable obstacles. You have crazy opposition, but it still managed to be a well-paced journey. and it still somehow felt modern, even though there's really no modernity in this. Like, there are no modern things in this that I like. Yeah, nothing that I can recall. It very much feels like your typical epic fantasy as far as the things that are in it, but it's still somehow, I don't know if it may be because of their ages, the Aaron and his friend, but it does feel like it's younger and more modern. So I feel like anyone who's younger that wants to get into high fantasy, this would be a good place to start, in my opinion. The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. I read this early in the year. I honestly wasn't very excited to read it. I was just curious. But this was one that Smitty here on Book Talk, he talks about it a lot. So I was like, you know what? Let's just go ahead and give it a try. So this is African-inspired fantasy. And when I say, this is one you got, man, this was one that was it was gripping. In my opinion, this was a gripping tale. So this story is about the what are they called? They call themselves the Chosen. And the main character, Tao, his people are fleeing some sort of disaster that happened in their homeland. We don't get a whole lot of detail in this one, so I'm assuming the next book tells you more. I just haven't grabbed it yet. However, they're fleeing something that occurred in their homeland. They land on distant shores, and it's occupied. People live there. So they are basically the foreign invaders. However, they're like, we can't go back where we left, so sorry for you. And war ensues. And this war, at the point of Tao entering the story, and Tao is the main character, I believe this war has raged for like a century. And so Tao, he is a lesser, he's like very, very low in this society because they have like a caste system. And he's very low in this society. And a tragedy occurs in Tao's life, and he is determined to get revenge. And you go on the journey of him preparing himself and training for his revenge. And when he does not let up, he is not going to stop. He goes to like limits I wouldn't even attempt. He's going to endure things that most people would not even try in his efforts to prepare himself, because he's like, I am going to get my revenge. It's not even that he wants to be the best warrior ever. He just wants to be good enough to get his revenge, and he is determined. He will not stop. And so this book this was an emotional ride, because I was so invested, because I'm like, oh my gosh, he's doing so much. Like, Tao, please calm down. But yeah, he doesn't. And this was a good one. I really need to hurry up and get book 2, because I need to know what happens next. But I needed a break after I read it, so I just kind of put it off. But I think I'm ready to go ahead and get into book 2, because it was totally worth it. So those are the best books I've read so far this year. I've read more than that, but these are just 5 with the honorable mention that I just absolutely loved. And so if you want to know what I'm currently reading, I just started Empire of Silence by Christopher Rocchio. I believe that's how you say his name. And this is a space opera about a young noble. Some people hail him as a hero, and some people hail him as a monster. He started out as this young, idealistic noble, and somehow got to the point where he destroys the sun and is thusly responsible for ending billions of human lives. And so you get to go on the journey of how he got from here to there, basically. And so I just started it, but I already can tell I'm gonna absolutely love this. So, and I'm gonna be annotating that. You will see that if you stick around on this channel. But I'm absolutely enjoying it already, and I'll let you know my thoughts after I finish it. So there you have it. All right, stick around and mention, like, in the comments, let me know what books have been your favorite so far this year, because I really am always looking for recommendations, so I'd appreciate it.